All right, we have a Kurzweil PC3 synthesizer, PC3LE6 here. This particular Kurzweil, I mean, it's a beautiful synthesizer, but it has one fatal flaw, and that is this is the generation 1 or version 1. And when you turn it on, so if you go back here to the power and you turn it on, it will try and start, but then you'll start seeing all these flickering, and I think you can see those lights flickering up on everywhere. So all lights flicker up, and if you read online, what's happening is power's coming in from here, of course, and everything there is going to be just fine. But as it comes in, it's getting to different capacitors or going through a specific cable, and the cable's causing a problem or the capacitors are causing a problem. And so online they have some instructions. Kurzweil has some from their website, and then other websites also have instructions on how to fix this issue. And so what I'm going to do, I've never messed with this particular synthesizer, nor have I pulled apart any other, but I'm going to follow the instructions that they provided, and let's see if we can open this thing up, and hopefully I can give you guys a demonstration of correcting this particular issue and getting these machines to work again. All right. Okay, so first off, we got this upside down, and I'm going to try pulling apart. There's a couple things to be aware of that I could find. One is we got to pull off the end caps, and I think they typically talk about 4 screws. Looks like these are the 4 that they might be talking about here for the end cap, and then you have the end cap top screw, which you pull that out. It looks like, at least on some of the videos for the PC3, I haven't seen any specifically on this model, but you pull that out and that just pops off the end cap. The other thing is these ones in the back apparently hold on the back panel, which has all your inputs. And then here on the front, on the PC3.6, I have 3 right here. Let's see if I can get that out a little bit. But you can see I have these 3 screws, and then I have the 2 at the end with the end cap. So that seem to be in line, and that is probably the ones that are holding the board. I'm just guessing based off the manually. These ones look like they might be for where the actual keys go into the machine. So these ones apparently I do not need to take out down below. I'm going to just try and take out these ones up above. And you know, I just recommend taking these slowly and just trying your best. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now, and I'll do that off camera, and then I'll show you. Okay, a couple notes here. These screws are all the same size, and they all came from the very bottom, they went all the way up. This particular tab on the side panel, it was screwed in, and then what happened is you just slide something underneath it, and you can pull up, and then with that we should be able to pull it out, or at least, yeah, so we got it out. And that should allow us to effectively start removing this side panel. And it looks like it might be held on still by that screw, so I'm going to take that apart. The other thing is, in here in the middle, those 3 screws, 2 of them were the same as the other side on the side panel, but the one in the middle is slightly different. So you should be aware of that, and you can see that here. It's got a different, like kind of like a I guess it just has a washer around it. So anyways, that was in the middle, okay? And so just be aware of that. It's a different screw. It's got a washer, and you want to be aware of that when taking this apart. Okay, I'm gonna do the other side panel and see if I can get all this removed. Okay, so I got all the screws off of the bottom of the side panel and off the back, and it looks like this top is ready to come off. You can see it. You can see that it's willing to come off, right? But the side panel is not willing to come off yet, and I think it's because of these 2 screws are probably tied in on both sides. So, and it's got 2 on each of those sides. So I'm going to remove those and then see if I can get this thing off. Okay, so I removed those 2 screws, and sure enough, the side panel, as you can just see, just pops right off. So those were the last 2 holding it in. You can see right there that they connect in, and that's basically just the plastic side panel right there. We now have that removed, and we now have the thing exposed. I will say a couple of things that are really nice here. One is all of the screws that I pulled out, with the exception of that one, are all that was in the center of the board, are all the exact same size. So great on Kurzweil to do that and not use, you know, funky screws that makes it just harder to pull apart. The next thing is they talk about just pulling this thing off, and I think you know, basically we just put a little bit of pressure. Okay, so pressure's been applied and we're now pulling it off, or pulling it open. And so now we can see the inside of the board, and here's where it gets fun. So now we get to find out, okay, that one, it looks like a couple things. One is the top is not fully connected to the bottom, and I apologize for trying to hold all this together at the same time, but it does look like you don't want to pull too hard on this. The second thing is we're going to need to find out exactly where these issues are. And so we can see from the power brick, okay, there's our power brick right there. So that's where the power is coming in, and that's going into this. And that looks fine. We should be able to open up, you can't see that, but we should be able to get this thing open here. Hopefully, I'll have to take a look. And I can definitely see this is a Molex style cable. It's kind of a unique one. They do recommend taking the Molex cables and then clean them off. The other thing is, once you're in here, you know, you might as well do some of the cleaning of the keys and stuff, or what you can. I'm going to look at the specific manual again and try and find the exact circuit board that we need to do the operations on. We should be able to find it in here. It looks like all of the circuit boards are up on the top part and are not actually attached to the keyboard. So it looks like the keyboard, with the exception of this power, looks like all of the power is coming in through here, and then getting maybe taking the 120 outlet or whatever your power is, and then converting it right in here, right? And so that's where your power is being converted, probably into 12 DC or whatever it needs in here, 9 volts, 12 volts, maybe multiple voltage, right? So that's probably all going through here. And this looks like another style Molex cable here. I heard that these can be very fidgety on this machine. So one of the things that probably needs to be done too, probably need to open this up, take these off, and then with the Molex removed, put in some contact cleaner, clean them, and just check them, make sure they're not worn and torn. But overall, with a couple of exceptions, it's kind of really nicely organized here. So now it's just a matter of finding out where everything is, and finding out what's what. And I think some of the issue that we're looking at is probably going to be here, and then even some of the boards are labeled pretty good here. Like, you know, there's the PC3 rear panel, and with the MIDI and the CPU. So that is where all our inputs are coming in on this board right here. Maybe I should get this out in a better show. But this is where all the inputs are coming in. So, like, for instance, our quarter-inch jacks and all that, and your sustain pedal is going through this board right here. So I don't know if that has so much of an issue. This looks pretty straightforward. That looks also like the board on the top where you just push the buttons, right? So this is going to be where you do your sliders and faders and stuff. So, and then here they got the keyboard bass and treble. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but we'll have to figure that out. So I'm thinking probably this board right off the power supply, this, and then the power supply converter part is probably where a lot of the harm comes in on this particular digital piano. But I'm going to take a look and get in there, and then I'll show you what I can find out. Okay, so I opened this up and I removed the two Molex cables. This one going to the power supply, and this one coming off and onto the main board. And I'm looking at this down here, the actual power converter. portion, and everything in there really looks good. Actually, very very clean. I just cleaned out the board real quick, but what I need to do, according to the service manual, is I need to get on the left front board, which is going to be on this side, and it's going to have this component C7 down there, which I think is down there at the very bottom. And I can't even barely see that. So what I'm going to try and do is, and apparently that piece needs to be cut or removed. And I do see that this one up above says C1. So in all likelihood, that is in fact C7, but I can't see it. So, and they say you can cut it off or you can desolder it. And so there's going to be a little bit of work that's got to be done here because, first of all, I got to remove these two wires coming out of here. I'm gonna have to take and separate the two boards completely to get this done because I need to get this flat, and then I'm probably going to need to pull these screws out of here and maybe even remove this board to get back there. You know, I can try cutting that piece if that's the C7. It might also be, well, that's the only other one, so I think it can only be that piece or that that capacitor there. But I also need to remove these two keyboard cables. So the main thing for that then is, before you do something like this, just check in on the tension. But it's probably a good idea to take a Sharpie on these, and I'm going to do that. And because you can see they look identical, and so probably a good idea to take a Sharpie and just mark like, hey, KT, KB, right? And that way when we put it back, it'll be the same. And then maybe even over here we can put what does it say? Wills and to IBBB. They look different enough, and we got them on camera, but I could always put like J3 on it or something, and that way we just don't have an issue going forward where we're going to have any confusion about where these pieces have come from. So I'm going to go ahead and start doing that. Okay, so I found the C7, and basically it is on the left front, but it's not that. It is not that capacitor. That is like C3 or something like that. Instead, it's on the inside down here, and it's way down there. This is where the capacitor was. In this particular case, it looks like somebody already cut it off. And so somebody probably tried to get in here following the directions. And I've heard that you know, is part of the process. There's a couple other things. One of the other issues with it, which you find on, I think it's Jirin's website, is he talks about one of the capacitors actually going bad and then swapping out for a 2200 microfarad capacitor on the board. And I got to find out where that is. And I have some low ESR capacitors ordered that will hopefully be here tonight. And then I'll, you know, hopefully be able to try and get that. And they do say that that does fix the issues. But anyways, it's just something to be aware of, that in this particular case, that particular piece has been moved. There's also on the actual service website, it says on the drum pad LED PCB, remove C3 if not already removed. And you can see here is your C3 piece right there. And if you look, it looks like to me that these ones are all connected. But it does look like that piece has already been removed. Maybe even factory, because that looks very nice. So it doesn't look like somebody unsoldered that. It looks like it might have been factory. So this might have came out a little bit later. So that means that probably what's going to happen with this particular board is it's not just going to be an easy cut and paste and just remove that one piece. I am going to have to resolder onto the actual board itself. So I'm going to take a look in that and find out what I need to do further. Okay, so the other fix that is has not for sure been done on here is located on this portion. This is the rear panel. It's below where you're it's on the left hand side, and you can see it's got the from power supply Molex cable there. It's got this Rev C1 cabling, so it's got all this cabling going in. I'm gonna mark up all this cabling, write down the names of what it is, so like MIDI and power and all that. And then here, if you look, you can see this. So this is kind of where your key is. Hopefully we can get a good picture there. Let's try and get, yeah, there you go. And you see that U7? So the U6 is the problem apparently. You can see it's very small, but that's got to be removed. And then I think right out here next to the U7, you have this little triangle block, and that is where a new capacitor is going to go in. That's where the low ESR 2,200 microfarad. The website that I saw said 2G2, but as best I can tell, that is actually he was using a 10 volt 2,200 microfarad, and maybe it's just for European countries how they refer to that. Anyways, so this has got to be removed, and then this gets a new capacitor soldered in. And so what's going to happen is we got to remove this board. There's just no way you're going to be able to get down there. You're going to have to, we're just going to have to pull it out. And then once we got it pulled out and everything removed from it, then we'll be able to place it, and we'll actually be able to get the soldering gun out and actually go to town. That U6 piece is very, very small. So you might need a needle nose pliers as well. I'll have to see what it looks like on the backside. As far as threading this, if you could probably just hit it on the top and then solder the new one right over, and you'll be fine. There's a lot of room in here. So that's the one good news, is once you put it back together, there does appear to be quite a bit of room here. However, you got to remember that this piece is connected to all of this stuff. So some of these have, these, we're going to have to undo those to get those off. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to pull that board out. So a little bit more work, but let's go ahead and try getting this taken apart. All right, so we got this piece removed, and here we can see the issues. So this particular piece, the U6 there, let's point to it. U6 is the one that's got to come out. Looking at the bottom, there's no, this is just surface mount, so you're not going to get that from anywhere but here. And so basically that particular piece, sorry, it's hard to do these both, but that particular piece can be kind of a pain to get off. This piece though goes all the way through the bottom, right there, the U7, where we're going to put in the new capacitor. And so what we can try and do is go through the bottom and melt that, melt the solder, and then just stick it on through. So hopefully that'll work, and that'd come out and it would make it look like a nice job. Now something else that I saw on this, and by the way, all of these pieces here, all of the white ones, white little connectors, they are they have glue on them. So, and you can see some of the residue right there. That glue is real obnoxious. So you're going to need something like this, or better to pry those up, because that glue, if you just try it by hand, it's not going to work very well. You can try cutting the glue too. That'll work. I did use, on a couple of them, I did use this particular tool just to get on the side and kind of rock it back and forth just gently. Obviously this is probably not the best because it can cut it, but if you do it gently, I think you're going to be okay. The other thing I noticed is when I flip this over, excuse me, you have that right there, which is really odd that they would do a bridge like that. I mean, somebody did that. That is like a really sloppy job. That's just terrible. And I'm not sure what they were trying to do there. It also looks like, it might be something I just reflow. And then down here too, right there, you see those two? Those look really bad right in here. So there might be some reflow needed. Otherwise, most of it looks pretty good, the PCB itself. I don't see any major issues, but those two look awful. What is that anyways? Let's flip it over and see if we can find out exactly where that goes. So that looks like it goes to this R74. So I might reflow that, just because it looks bad. And then also there's some dirt, just a little bit on that PCB. And you know what? It looks like there's some gunk on there, doesn't it? So I might get like some alcohol and clean that as well. Yeah, it looks like gunk on there. So anyways, I'm gonna do that. I don't have the capacitors, the low ESR ones, to replace it right now, so I'm gonna do that later on. But anyways, that's something you're probably gonna want to look at. And ultimately, most of the sites say that if you do that, this board will be fixed. And hopefully that's the case, because I'm really excited to play this thing. I think it looks awesome, and I just want to really hear how it sounds. All right, thank you. All right, so we went in, and the U6 chip right there, we removed it. And so this thing is just tiny. I mean, it's kind of a pain. You can see how small that is. I mean, it's not even, it's a few millimeters at most. Anyways, so the main thing to do with that, because it is kind of difficult, is just get some solder flow on it and try and work those, and then you're probably going to have to use the tweezers and just pull it off. So I got that. The U7 portion, so on the back it had some pretty good solder, so I went through and used just a solder sucker type device, and then was able to clear out the two holes that I need for the positive and the negative. That I'll eventually, when I have the capacitor, I'll put it through, and then I'll have that new capacitor there, and that should, at that point, hopefully fix this problem. So anyways, we'll wait for that, but that's just a little bit of information on how to do this particular portion. And just make sure you got a lot of rows in. I strongly recommend with this not trying to use lead-free solder to mess with any of that, because I've just had a lot of problems with lead-free solder in the past. The leaded solder will get that nice and flowing, so you can pull off the components, which you need to do. So anyways, try that out and see if that works. Okay, just wanted to give another little update here. So originally I undid this side closest to the capacitor, thinking that this would be, positive, negative, or whatever. Actually, it looks like the middle and the bottom one that's further away from the capacitor are that, according to the diagram online. So I'm going to refill that, and then I'm going to remove this. And so just FYI, even though it looks like normally you would think that would be where you're going, especially since it looks like it's hitting the ground, you would think that would be where it would be going, at least in my thoughts. But it looks like it's this middle one that you want to hit, and not that top one. So I'll just refill it. Alrighty, so I got the capacitors in, and I got the Panasonic ones, 10 volt, 2200 microfarad, ultra low ESR. You're probably going to want this because this is dealing with power. So I would recommend that anyways. You can see I have put it in there. I have not yet soldered it, but I have put the part through. You can see it's actually pretty big, and it kind of stands off that, and so I can maybe bend that with the legs, and then try and figure out exactly how I want that, how flat I want that to lay on it. Looks like if I can try and lay it over that piece, which appears to be D4, would probably be the best placement. but I don't think it's really a big deal. So, because there's plenty of room in there, so it's not like any of this is really tight together. So let's just see if we can get this soldered. Once I get this soldered, I'm gonna put it back together, and then I'll go ahead and just give it a try. All right, so I resoldered that component, specifically so I soldered in the capacitor, and I just hooked this all back up and turned it back on, and it looks fantastic. Now the screen's real washed out, so on the back here there's the contrast, and I'm going to turn that and see if I can get this to show up a little bit better with the contrast. There we go. Okay, so I think that worked. It wasn't doing this before, that's for sure. So it wouldn't come up at all. I haven't hooked up the headphones yet. So let me throw that in. And the whole board is not all connected, right? So I haven't put everything back. The side panels aren't on. None of that is together because I just wanted to confirm, first of all, that it would actually work. And I'm happy to see that it did. I did, however, only put back a couple of the pieces. I put back the one I needed for the headphones. So I'm going to slide the headphones in there. And hopefully... Oh yeah. So let's hear that. So I can try turning up the volume. Oh yeah, you can hear it playing. That's me. I'm sorry, that's me on the keyboard. And that's just coming through the headphones, so it's real quiet right now. So I haven't played with it at all or whatnot, but it does seem to be running. I'm very excited. Thank you very much for Jirin's information on how to fix that, because it looks like it's running great right now. I mean, man, it looks fantastic. I am gonna update. There's some updates for this as well that need to be installed. I think they add some more sounds and more stability towards the device itself. So I'm going to do that, but you can see it is now functioning. It is not having that power restart issue that it did before, and I am getting sound through the actual device. So I got to go through and test it out, see how well it's working, but at least we know that this fix does work, and you have a breakdown of exactly how to do that if you are running into this particular problem. All right, thank you very much. Bye-bye.